imagine you wake up tomorrow morning. It's a beautiful sunny day, unlike today, of course. You put the kettle on, but just then you hear a knock on your door. When you open it, you see that the police are waiting for you. You're confused. What could you have possibly done? It is then that you are falsely accused of brutally murdering your own child. This is the start of an ordeal that will remain etched in the history of the Irish legal system. You don't know it yet, but the law will fail you. Your vindication for this crime that you have been falsely accused of will never come from the law. It will come from yellow roses. That is what happened to Joanne Hayes, a young woman from a small town in rural Ireland. When the body of a newborn baby washed up on a beach in 1984, 80 kilometers away from her, suspicion fell squarely on her. Why, you ask, when she lived so far away? Well, this conclusion was the result of an unclear investigation by the Irish police authorities on Garda Síochána. Miss Hayes was unmarried. She had been pregnant and she lost this pregnancy. This coincidence ensured that in the eyes of the police, she was guilty. She and her family were forced to sign confessions under various threats. They were told that their home would be taken away. They were told that Joanne's older daughter would be sent to an orphanage if they refused to sign, and sign they did. They confessed to murdering the baby found on the beach. Soon, however, these confessions were proven to be false. Joanne's real baby, her own baby, was found on the family farm. Blood tests confirmed that she had been telling the truth all along. All charges against Joanne were dropped, and she was finally happy. Unfortunately for her, the case had attracted enormous public attention. So the government set up a tribunal to examine how and why these false confessions had been obtained. In other words, it was a tribunal to examine the conduct of the police. In practice, however, it was Joanne Hayes who went on trial. She spent a week in the witness box, the longest up until then in the history of our legal system. She was bombarded with 2,216 questions from 43 male officials in the tribunal. At one point, she had to be drugged just so she could continue answering the questions being thrown at her. Graphic details about her body were broadcast for the whole nation to consume. In the eyes of the tribunal, Joanne Hayes had presented a charade of barefaced lies. The tribunal went on to accuse her of murdering not the baby found on her beach, but her own baby. This is where the law failed. This is where the law got it completely wrong. At no point was there a shred of credible medical evidence against Joanne Hayes. But because she was a woman who dared to live a life beyond the rigid social and gendered norms of the era, she had a target on her back. And the tribunal exploited this target. It made her the villain. But when the law failed Joanne Hayes, the people refused to look away. Feminist protesters crowded the courtroom. People from all walks of life, people from across the country showed up to support her. They were called raucous and ignorant by the tribunal, but they stayed. They campaigned for her. As a symbol of support and solidarity, they brought her these yellow roses. Finally, in 2020, the state issued a formal apology to Joanne Hayes. Hearing about this case must have made you feel very uncomfortable, and it should. The point of this talk is not to tell the story of Joanne Hayes for her or on her behalf. It is simply to highlight the sheer injustice of this case. We think of the law as this bastion of justice. We believe it will always protect us. But the point of this talk is to show you that the law is not infallible. The law glosses over inconsistencies. It refuses to consider uncertainties. It values clarity and conclusion. And this often comes at the cost of true fairness. But do not let this make you feel powerless. So, what do you do when the law does get it wrong? You sit with the uncertainty, however uncomfortable that may be. You question the inconsistencies. You refuse to stay silent in the face of injustice. In other words, you bring the yellow flowers. That knock could have been on any of our doors. It could have been any of us in that witness box, beaten down and vilified. It could have been any of us left waiting 36 years for an official state apology. So I leave you with one final question. Who will bring you your yellow roses?